Hello, everyone, and welcome to our house on Bluff Road. We're Rick and Kim. We started building our house in the fall of 2020, and we moved in just before Christmas of 2021. So the overall build process took over 14 months, and we went through all 4 seasons during the build of this house. So we got to experience everything: snow, rain, sunshine, etc. So overall, we were pleased with the process, and we also built through the initial phase of the heavy COVID environment that caused some issues for the whole industry. The first thing I can say we really like about our house, it is a very structurally sound house. The insulation, the soundproofing, the quietness of this house, that's one of the first things we noticed. We moved in, obviously during the winter months, furnaces are running, and we're literally laying in our bedroom and you cannot even hear a furnace running because our house is so quiet. So we greatly appreciate that quality that Colin put into the house and what I call a modern build.
Yeah. Why did we choose Colin? Right?
Why did we choose Colin? Yes.
We started looking at several builders.
Well prior to 2020, we already owned the lot that we have here. We reached out to literally 9 different builders. Several were way too busy and too expensive for our price points. We finalized it down to 3 and interviewed 3 closely. And immediately Colin started to shine, just even on the first 10 minutes of discussion with Colin, and the way he deals with customers and how he goes through the build process.
Direct, above board.
Yeah.
You know, been in the business a long time, been in the community a long time. You know, came across as very trustworthy.
Yeah.
I'll say that developed, we'll get into this probably, but with his team, you know, he's had team members for a long time that we think very highly of, and we're very happy to have them on our project. You know what I mean? Very quality, very, you know, honest, upright, just care about their work and what the job that they do. So.
Yeah, the other thing that Colin did, and we had other friends that are building literally right now, Colin was on the work site many times 3+ days a week, and minimally at least once a week, where we met with him face to face, where we have other friends that are building right now where they haven't seen the builder since day one, and they feel very slighted that way, where Colin was here active. And we have, anytime you build, you always have minor issues or changes that have to occur in the house, and sometimes it's a little price change here or there. And Colin's very good about presenting the situation and trying to come up with a solution not to affect the timeline of the build of the house and so forth. So we appreciated seeing Colin literally every time we were here. He was here and wanted to explain how things were going to get done or the next steps, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes the crews don't know the exact next steps, where Colin has I call it the master plan, along with his project managers on guiding us through the build.
So yeah, his extended team was very good too, right? I mean, we had Mary, who we worked with relative to all of our selections and just keeping
the timing of the selections,
the sourcing, if you will, on track that was needed, because obviously that's very important. And obviously we built right in the middle of COVID, and she was incredible too. She was absolutely incredible. These are the things you need to be thinking about. His sourcing mechanisms, I think we appreciated, because you could still get the quality, but also at a value price point.
Yeah. For example, we have Anderson 400 windows in this house. We think those are medium high level windows, probably not the highest level in the industry, but we were able to source those windows through Home Depot of all things, because Colin taught us a technique. Once they knew all the sizes of the windows that had to go in, and you have your window package, as they call it, you can actually go to Home Depot, working with Colin and the rep there, and they take it through a special bid process within Home Depot. And he probably saved us, right there alone, $20,000 to $30,000 just on the window package alone. And so we really appreciated how conscious Colin was of our budget throughout the whole build cycle, and not just blowing out the budget. We knew we'd have little overruns and changes during the build process. And even Kim and I added things.
Well, even COVID, right? Lumber became an issue. We were at I would say, the beginning of COVID.
So we were
in a lot of ways, we were benefited because of that. But like our lumber package, guess what? Lumber prices went through the roof. So what Colin did is negotiated with
Way up front.
another company. He was going to get a package. It was at a great price, but they were going to
Delivered all at
they
once.
would have delivered it all at once. So he then went to another source, local, and was able to get very close to that price point, and they would deliver the lumber as needed.
In the stages that were needed.
Right, yeah.
So
that was
versus just lumber
perfect
laying around
example.
all winter long while
Right.
the build was going on.
Right,
So
yep.
we appreciate that.
Yep. Yeah.
The other thing we did with Colin very early on, obviously you have your architectural plans that everyone works off of and prices off of. But even before we started the build, Kim was looking through thousands of magazines on design cues, and we worked with an interior designer that did our kitchen for us. And Colin fully accepted her into the build cycle with that.
Yep.
And we had pictures specifically of the trim that we wanted on the main floor of the house. And Colin immediately said, no problem, gave us a price point. We agreed to the price point, and we were so glad we went through that process of picking that level, because we have heavier trim around our doors, our base moldings, and beams and so forth within the house that we selected. And pretty much Colin replicated the picture that we presented him from a national magazine. So we appreciate that.
His trim team is amazing, Glenn and Dave. Again, also awesome human beings. I mean, just good people to work with all the way around.
Yeah. Another aspect of our house, on the second floor of our house, we've tried to minimize the square footage to just keep our costs under control. And we knew we would end up with a unfinished large closet up there. But once it got physically built and you could stand in that unfinished closet, we turned to Colin and said, okay, how much more does it cost to put the drywall, insulation, everything in here? Gave us a price. It was very reasonable to do it, but we wanted just natural light up there. So one of the things we said, hey, can we put in a skylight? And he goes, well, you really don't want skylights anymore. He suggested putting in a sun tube, which has been around for a while. And even that, it was not an expensive add to the house. And to this day, we appreciate it because it just adds all this natural light near the top of our stairwell. And even at night, if the moon is out, we get daylight from the moon. So it's a nice little feature. So again, on our second floor, we have 2 bedrooms and a bathroom up there. And we knew the layout where we'd be placing the actual bed in the bedroom closest to the bathroom. The headboard would be up against the wall behind it, which would have the sink and the shower. And we were very concerned about just noise between the rooms. And so Colin and his team was very aggressive on suggesting certain kind of insulation, a Rox wool kind of insulation that we put in, but we actually went a step further. I'm drawing a blank on the brand, but we put the equivalent like rubber.
It's like a rubber mat.
Like a rubber wallpaper underneath the drywall that literally knocks the sound deadening like by 92 dB. It was some very large noise. And even our guests who have stayed in that room many times say, you can't hear anything up there because it just deadens the sound in the walls. So again, it's just one of those things that Colin was very amenable to just last minute changes because we were thinking through it, and then we worked with him, and the team put it up. The drywall crew didn't have any issues with it, and it just worked perfectly for us for those rooms, just to have, I call it more quieter rooms for guests up there. So as you build your house and you finally move into your house, there's always little punch list items that have to get completed after you move in. And Colin's team came back, the painters touched up little things. We worked with our appliance people to make sure things got fitted right, especially our double oven and stuff like that. But we quickly found that at all our faucets in the house, we had great water pressure except for at the kitchen sink. And it was a very weird anomaly because showers are fine, laundry's fine, everything's fine, except for the kitchen sink. And
if you turn down the washer, and it almost went to a dribble.
Yeah, at the kitchen sink.
It was pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious. And so Colin came out and looked at it and he goes, wow, this is very odd. And so what we really, really appreciate that Colin did at no cost, he brought back all the vendors or subcontractors that are involved in the whole water supply system. So we started with the well drilling company, which is called B&Z. They came out, pulled the wellhead out, reran water gallons per minute tests, and is actually performing higher than the original test at that point. We had the plumbing crew, Right Choice, and a very specific gentleman by the name of Chet, really great plumber. He walked in and showed everyone how everything is plumbed exactly correct, teed off or split in the house, left, right, up and down. All the correct PEX sizings is right, and so forth. We had the water softener company come out and reevaluate their softener and did a full water test on how many gallons per minute are going through the water softener. And the problem still persisted a little bit. And so finally I was persistent with the manufacturer of the faucet, which is Delta. We chose a higher end touch faucet. Unbeknownst to us, into the actual electrical control box, there was a filter that was clogged that caused all this problem. But Colin had the persistence and the perseverance to bring all the vendors back and the contractors back at no cost and try to resolve the issue. And to this day, we have no problems. It just, we chose a faucet that had where a filter, you would never even expect that filter to be in this little electric control box, and it was there. So everyone was happy at the end of the story.
Rick never wanted the touch faucet, and hence we don't have a touch faucet anymore. That worked out well, didn't it?
So some other, not unique, but nice features of our house. In the overall just footprint of our house, the way we wanted to look over the bay, we repeatedly met with the architect and Colin on how high our house should be above the ground, for which we can have a big porch on the front of the house that you might see in the pictures, but we didn't want any railing on the porch. So Colin quickly knew all the rules and regulations, and we have everything on our house where you only take 2 steps to get onto any porch or in and out of the garage. And it allows it, as we age, it allows us a little bit easier in and out of the house, but it gives us an unblocked view of the bays and so forth. But part of that equation was also we had a choice as using poured walls, or Colin introduced us to a product called Superior Walls. These are prefabricated walls, basement wall sections that are made in a factory, and they get assembled on site. And what's the beauty of that product is you can order 10-foot walls, 10-foot high walls, and they get assembled on a site. And literally, once the hole was dug for our basement, when the Superior Wall subcontractor showed up, our whole basement was set up in probably 5 hours. So it's not days of setting up forms, waiting for concrete to cure, and then you can't put a load on it. The minute the contractor drove away, if the next team was here that exact second, they could have actually started framing. But for us, even though we don't have much of a finished basement, we truly have a very tall basement for future development. If we want to have more bedrooms or bathrooms, which I already completed a little bit down there, but it just gives you an incredible amount of space in our basement. And this holds true, and I don't know if you have them in the pictures. We also have a detached garage. So we have an attached garage to our house, and we have a detached garage because we have boats and other water toys. And so we wanted to build a larger storage, call it looking garage. And we had a full architectural plan, and we had it built to a specific height. But then all the lumber got delivered, and we wanted a little bit over 10-foot high garage door on that building. I just happened to be on site when the wood got delivered, and 12-foot boards got delivered, 2x6 by 12 footers got delivered. And I realized that these guys, the construction team the framing team is going to be cutting these boards down just to make the plans work. And I turned to Colin that day. He was on site again, and I said, "Hey, Colin, can we just make, the garage door, the whole garage 18 inches taller, and I will pay for the other section of the garage door because it causes your garage door to be slightly larger." He hemmed and hawed for a second. He goes, "Rick, you realize that's going to cause more siding and stuff?" He goes, "Don't worry, we have enough product on site." He goes, "We'll let you go with the taller though." And to this day, now I can bring my whole boat in with the whole arch system or the canopy system, and I only have to lower everything because the door is so tall. So it was a really nice thing that Colin did for us. And
well, it was a small win-win. I think it was a little bit of less labor. Obviously we appreciated it, right? But so it worked out for everyone. It was a good solution.
Yeah. The other thing we did within the house too is when it came time to just the overall interior design, we didn't want to hire the big name designers in town, as I'll call it, but we did start shopping some kitchen cabinetry with another company that Colin also has worked with. And if the cabinets came through that company, it also came with some interior design help. And that woman's name was Liz, from At Home Cabinetry. And it turned out she provided a lot of design interior cues, not necessarily changing any cost of anything, but she worked really well, we think, with Colin on getting things done, even down to
she was instrumental in these
we have four,
beams,
maybe no, we'll have a picture. We have four beams in this kitchen great room area, and if you actually measure it, the beams are not equally spaced. They're strategically placed to make them look supported over a fireplace or over a corner wall or perfectly centered over a kitchen sink. And we wouldn't even thought of doing something like that. And she's done enough of that type of work where she really helped us out, and then worked directly with Colin and making sure all the measurements and everything were met perfectly to align with where everything was. So,
and then Colin's team stained them to.
We have flora and and so forth. So
So
that turned out great. I wouldn't have known that either.
You don't even look.
Visually, you'd never
know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing we can say is the direct team that Colin has, Mike and Dave and Glenn and the project managers, Mary, and there's
Jerry now.
Jerry now. That team is here every day, in and out, working with whatever crew is here, but their true talents come to the finish, carpentry as I call it, and Dave and Glenn and so forth. I mean, those guys can pretty much build anything you can visualize or draw. And they take so much pride in their work and what they do and how they finish things, the details on how they finish. We have some shiplap going and how they finish the corners of the shiplap. Maybe you can take some pictures of that to show people what they do. Painstaking little details that they do. We have some shelving on our wet bar. And I was telling Dave, we're going to have some liquor and stuff on that cabinet. I go, make sure they're strong. He goes, Rick, these are up here. I stood on them. You're going to be able to put a couple bottles of liquor up here. We appreciate that. And just their attention to detail on installing everything in this house. As we worked through the whole process of building our house, the project manager, Mary, was crucial because we were in the COVID era. Even today, I know things are in short supply. So knowing all the materials you want in your house at the right time point for which Colin and team can order all the products and get them delivered on time is critical. Otherwise, you could be holding up teams or losing teams onto other projects. So because we were working through the COVID era, I would say to any prospective new customer of Colin is just work closely with that project manager to make sure you're both communicating that you're getting all your selections right. Whether it's a piece of stone for a fireplace or a countertop color or lighting selections. We even went through, we have all recessed lighting on the main floor. Whether you're buying lock sets or we have handles, all Wi-Fi enabled lock sets. Some of that became short supply real quick in the COVID era. The project manager and...
she had a very good relationship with Build.com.
Build.com, where we got a lot of products from. And it's all name brand products that you can get from Build.com. It's not, I know some people will build much higher end product than us. We built to a price point that is comfortable for Kim and I, and really what we can afford. But that's where we ended up.
Yeah, it's value engineering.
Absolutely. Right. That's a great term, value engineering. Yes.
Right. You brought up that term, value engineering. I'm an engineer by schooling, and I've built a little bit of small stuff myself. And some builders don't even want to get into it with the buyers, per se, on the minutia of the subfloor products or the insulation type. Colin was very conscious of my ability to, not my ability, but my thoughts on what things should be. So he even presented, like our subfloor. I had 3 different choices of very weatherproof type subfloor, 3/4 inch subflooring tongue and roof systems here. We chose a certain brand. I call it the purple brand because they all have their colors. So we have purple. But Colin just didn't shrug me off.
We worked through all those details.
We worked through. I'm a detail-oriented guy.
You showed up with a lot of details.
I show up with a lot of
yes.
details,
Yes.
and Colin says, "Rick,
Yes.
no problem.
Yes.
Let me just check with the suppliers which ones are available."
Yeah.
He came back to me, said, "Option A is this price. Option B
Right,
is
right.
in the budget. Option
Right.
C is this price."
Yeah.
And we said, "Okay, let's go with this one," and that's what he did. And we went through that.
Yeah, on a lot of things. Yeah.
Even when we went
Yeah.
through the window packages, you have to really evaluate. First of all, what brand are you going with? Are you going Pella, Anderson, Kelby? I can go down the list. You know, what I mean, then there's Marvin, et cetera. We ended up with the higher level of the Anderson windows because we just like the dividers and the windows, the way they laid out, and the way we could match it to the sliding doors that we have presenting on the water side of our house. And again, you can, if you don't want to, as a buyer, if you don't want to be involved in those processes, you can trust Colin. He's going to guide you through a good,
Yeah, you don't have to
a
be
good
involved in that
selection
level of
process there.
detail.
If you don't
Right.
want to be that minutia
Right.
detail person like I am,
Yeah.
Colin and his team will take you there.